In this video, I would like to introduce you to the concept of deadweight loss after the government imposes a specific tax on production. So basically, we saw in the previous few videos that even though there is a tax, even though the price is altered on the market such that it goes from the equilibrium price initially to a higher price that consumers pay and to a lower price that firms get to keep after they pay their taxes to the government does collect tax revenue, which is shown by this green rectangle over here. However, there are some effects that the government does not compensate. The government loses. The society overall loses certain parts of the welfare, and the welfare is basically the total benefits in this marketplace, which is composed of consumers, producers, and the government. And in this video, I would like to show you which they are. So first of all, let's draw our attention to the consumers. What do consumers have as a benefit of consuming certain products? They have consumer surplus. What is that? That's basically going to be the difference between the demand curve, which represents the willingness to pay for a product, and the price that they get to pay. So in the very beginning, okay, when there is no tax, this is the triangle that represents the original consumer surplus, okay? This white triangle that I'm shading right now is the consumer surplus before the tax. Hope this all makes sense. So the difference between the demand curve and the equilibrium price, all this area is going to be the consumer surplus. What happens after the price increases due to the tax? The consumer surplus is diminished. I'm going to show it with the yellow color right now. The consumer surplus is diminished to this triangle over here. So the price increases to the price that consumers pay after the tax, and this yellow triangle is showing that consumer surplus. We can see that it falls by a certain area. What area is being lost? It's this one, okay? This area of consumer surplus is being lost. Now, let's draw our attention to producers. Let's see what happens to the producers, because producers also have producer surplus, which is the difference between the price that they get to sell for and the willingness to sell that is shown on the supply curve. So originally, okay, let me show it with the white color as well. Originally, when there is the equilibrium price on the market without the taxes, this triangle over here, which is the difference between the willingness to sell or the supply curve and the equilibrium price, is going to be the producer surplus originally without the taxes. However, after the tax, this is the price that firms get to keep only. So therefore, with yellow, I'm showing what is the producer surplus after that effect. Well, the producer surplus falls to this small triangle only. The yellow one I'm shading right now, okay? This yellow one. So as a result, what happened on the market? It happened that producers lost this area that I'm going to shade. Let me change color to make it more visible. This area is being lost on the market, and that is the loss in producer surplus. Now, let's draw our attention to the tax revenue, because the tax revenue, as I said, is a compensation for these losses. The government at least collects some revenue that it can use later on for public projects, like investment in infrastructure, investment in public schools, etc., etc. So as a result, part of these losses of consumer surplus and producer surplus are compensated by this green rectangle over here. I'm shading that right now. Hope this is clear. And finally, I get to introduce you to the concept of deadweight loss. It's called deadweight loss because this loss is not recovered by any entity on the market. So we have a deadweight loss in consumer surplus shown by this triangle. Okay, this is part of the deadweight loss from the consumer side, deadweight loss from the consumer side, and we have this small triangle, which is the loss in producer surplus that's not being compensated by the government. So that is the deadweight loss from the producer side. And as a result, to sum this up, this triangle over here overall that I'm shading right now in blue, this one is going to be our deadweight loss. Hope this all makes sense. I appreciate you all watching. If you like the video, please make sure to subscribe, and we are done.